Hello, my dear viewers. This amazing story will be very instructive for you. It is very interesting and beautiful. I wish you enjoy watching it.
An ordinary working day in the same place and team did not foreshadow anything unusual. Taking his workplace, Archie turned on his computer and started working, as usual catching Veronica's glances, which she threw at him furtively. The whole office knew that Veronica was in love with him, and Archie found it irritating. Colleagues often teased him, and he was unpleasant. Archie, of course, joked about it, but in his heart, that was striking. He is a free man, prominent, quite well-to-do. Not so long ago bought an apartment, albeit on the outskirts of the city, but a two-bedroom. And Veronica, not his type at all. You could walk past her on the street and not notice her. He didn't like fat women at all, and even with the baggage of a 4-year-old daughter. One should choose according to oneself, and not take a chance on something that costs an order of magnitude higher, so he thought. Ura, the economist from the neighboring office, was just the perfect match for Veronica. A bald, chubby guy with a pot belly and glasses. But even he doesn't pay attention to Veronica. Probably doesn't pick him out for himself, either. There'd be fewer lonely people if everyone chose their soulmate of the same level. You going to lunch? Archie heard Harvey's voice working at the table next to him and looked at his watch. It was already lunchtime, too. He stretched and rose from his chair. Let's go. They left the office and rushed toward the elevator as suddenly. Archie blinked a few times, thinking he was dreaming, but no, it was real. A girl he'd never seen before was walking toward them, and if he had, he wouldn't have been able to forget her. She looked like she had stepped off the cover of a glossy magazine. Her blonde, wavy hair fell over her naked, graceful shoulders, and the figure that was encased in the pink dress, the slim waist, the wide hips, the breasts. Archie thought she was between a size 2 and 3. Beautiful face, perfect makeup, manicure, that dress, thin stiletto sandals. Everything about her was perfect. Archie admired the girl, unable to take his eyes off her, and he wasn't the only one. Other men, present here, also as mesmerized looked at this goddess. But the goddess, not noticing anyone, continued on her way. She passed by Archie and Harvey without even looking at them, and they turned around. "What a doll," said Harvey in a whisper, almost drooling. "What an ass." Archie, too, noticed her rounded ass, which was tightened by the dress. Perfect. A bombshell. Where did she come from? He kept standing in one place as if hypnotized. Probably works here. Probably just got here. Harvey said, "Get out of here before lunch is over." There was no ring on her finger, so she wasn't married, said Archie, still holding his posture, though the girl had already turned down another corridor and was out of sight. "Did you get a good look at that?" Harvey wondered. "I saw everything." "Harvey, I won't be able to sleep now." "You better go to sleep. We're not going to get a hottie like that." Archie looked at his colleague in bewilderment. "Why is that?" "I'll never rest until I get to know her. I've lost my appetite." "Are you just going to stand there?" Harvey grinned. "Come on, let's go." Archie turned and walked toward the elevator. The stranger was in front of his eyes, and he was still under hypnosis. After lunch, it was extremely difficult to work further, because all thoughts were far from work, and the rest of the day he thought only of her, and he could not sleep for a long time. The next day at work, he hurried like a holiday, with the firm intention to find out who and where this unearthly beauty came from. Actually to find out, and did not have to. "Have you seen what star is now working next door to us?" asked Ura, a colleague of Harvey and Archie. "Archie went into a stupor when we saw it," answered Harvey. "All the men in the business center seemed to be into it. Bombastic hottie. Anyway, works in the 3002 office, name's Maran." "What a name," Archie said. "I'd like to meet her." "That's a big one. There's a lot of competition out there. Show me someone who wouldn't," said Ura. But when at lunch at one of the tables, Archie saw her accompanied by 2 girls who paled in comparison with Maran. He couldn't help but approach and get acquainted. "I would never have forgiven myself if I had not met you," he said, looking only at her. "Maran," the girl answered indifferently, rather even waved away, making a slightly annoyed expression on her face. "Can we go somewhere after work? Any place of your choice," he answered, being determined to win this beauty by all means, otherwise there would be no rest for him. I have other plans. I'm sorry, answered Marian. The day after tomorrow? Archie didn't give up. I don't think so, she said. Then maybe on the weekend? Not on the weekend either. Archie, I don't think you'll like the places I like to go, she said in a somewhat condescending tone. I'm sure she would. Let's go anywhere you like. Well, Marian smiled a little, and her eyes sparkled slyly. Then on Saturday at the restaurant Turandot. Do you know it? No, but I'd love to go there with you. Archie was so happy he could fly to the moon and leave a phone number. Marian took a pen out of her purse and wrote her phone number on a napkin. Thank you, Archie replied, putting the napkin in his pocket. He spent the rest of the day in a good mood, looking forward to their meeting on Saturday. He bragged to Harvey about his little victory. You better look at the price tag in this resto before you get excited, he replied. You can't spare any money for a girl like that, answered Archie, but typed in the name of the restaurant in the search engine. Immediately going to the menu section, he whistled a little. Yeah, that's what I told you, said Harvey. Hey, 10 grand a plate. Fucking awesome. Archie scratched the back of his head thoughtfully. I told you this girl ain't for the likes of us. You want a pretty girl like that, you got to spend some money. I don't believe she has no one. There's no way she doesn't have a man. It's up to you. If you don't have the money, take her out to a restaurant. I doubt very much you'll be going to a room afterwards. Well, maybe not so fast, but it's still Sunday. Archie wasn't exactly thrilled with the prices at the Turandot, but he wanted Marian so badly that he was willing to splurge. Will there be anything left to go out for on Sunday? I'll figure it out, he answered. The next day, when Archie came to have lunch in a cafe located on the first floor of the business center, he stared in surprise at the table where Marian sat in the company. Actually, it was the company of the girl caused him such a perplexity. Next to the object of his dreams sat Veronica. What could be the society of a queen with a washerwoman? That's exactly the association he had in mind at that moment. Do you see that? He asked Harvey. See what? He didn't understand. What's what? Marian is having lunch with our Veronica. So what? Who knows who's having lunch with whom? He answered. Archie did not answer anything and went to the table where the most beautiful woman in the world was having lunch. Good afternoon, Marian. Do you mind if my friend and I join you? He asked. Marian strained her memory, but did not remember the man's name. Veronica and I would like to talk alone. I'm sorry, she replied, rewarding him with a discreet smile. But Saturday is still on, I hope. He asked, a little disappointed. If you haven't changed your mind, yes, she said. Of course I haven't changed my mind. Archie went back to Harvey. Of course you have. I'm dreaming about this Saturday, he thought. Her eyes, the most beautiful eyes he ever seen. They were mesmerizing, maddening. He was drowning in them, having looked into them only a moment ago. What's up? Did you blow him off? Harvey asked him. They need to talk to Veronica. About what? That's what Marian can talk to Veronica about, he said in surprise, looking at the table he just stepped away from. I'd ask, Harvey replied. How do you envision it? I don't know. What difference does it make? Taking trays of food, Archie and Nikolai sat down at a vacant table. I'll ask Veronica after lunch, said Archie. You shouldn't be doing this. You're not going to get anywhere with that, Marian, said Harvey. Archie frowned and looked at his colleague. I'll die for her, but she'll be mine, Archie replied somewhat irritably. After all, he was not a pauper, and he was not lacking in looks, but Harvey was beginning to get annoyed. He must be jealous, because he was probably drooling over Marian too. But he wouldn't go for it, because with his beer belly it would be ridiculous to approach such a girl. When Archie came back from lunch, he immediately approached Veronica. Veronica, have you met Marian? He asked, sitting down on the edge of her table. She answered as she continued to stare at the monitor. She had been in love with Archie for a long time, and she knew it wasn't reciprocated, but it was still very unpleasant to see him drooling over Marian. Veronica realized that she was not beautiful, and to Marian she was like to the moon, but do not love just for looks. And from where? Asked Archie. We went to the same school, she answered. What a small world. Listen, Veronica, does she have a man now? Veronica looked at Archie with undisguised surprise. I'm not in the habit of asking people about their personal lives. I understand, but it's important to me. And I have a huge favor to ask of you. One of these days, you could ask Marian if she likes me. Not for nothing, of course. I owe you a treat." "Archie, I'm not going to do that," Veronica said a little harshly. "Please." He looked at her with a look of pleading. "Archie, lunch is over. Go to your workplace." "I will." "Veronica, please help me. It's a matter of life and death." "Okay, I will, but just go away." "You're the best," Archie replied cheerfully and went to his desk, while Veronica continued to work. And on Thursday and Friday, Veronica watched how Archie's eyes light up when he sees Marian. And no man had ever looked at her like that before. That's what it means to be beautiful, she thought, sighing sadly. A man like Archie would never pay attention to a gray mouse like her. The long-awaited Saturday came, and Archie was looking forward to the evening to finally meet the girl of his dreams in an informal setting. Thinking at the same time about how to continue the evening, and at the same time the night at his house. This girl had been on his mind ever since he'd seen her, and he'd never wanted anything in his life more than he wanted her. All his previous girls had not been bad-looking either, but none of them could compare with Marian. When it was time to leave the house, Archie felt an excitement he had never felt before when going on a date. On the way to the flower store, he bought a bouquet of white roses, and then drove to the place where he and Marian had agreed to meet. Of course, when he got there, she wasn't there. Archie was prepared to wait for her as long as it took. The most important thing was that she come out without suddenly changing her mind about meeting him. His Ford, which he had washed the day before, was sparkling, and the interior had never been as clean as it was now. In general, Archie prepared thoroughly. Even the apartment was in perfect order, so as not to fall into disgrace when he brought Marian there. The people were going here and there, and Archie looked around, not knowing from which front door she would come out. Finally, Marian appeared, and he got out of the car immediately, taking the bouquet in his hands. The girl approached him, and he looked at her as if mesmerized, admiring this perfect beauty. "Hi, this is for you," said. He held out the bouquet to Marian when she approached him. "Thank you," she replied, smiling favorably, taking the roses from his hands. "You look stunning as always," Archie said, and opened the door of his car, inviting Marian to sit down. When she was seated in the front seat, he took his place behind the wheel. "There's one question that's been bugging me. How did you get into our business center?" he asked. "You should enter a beauty contest. I'm sure first place will be yours." "Well, I got into the business center probably like everyone else. I got a job in one of the offices, and the career of modeling in beauty contests I was never too interested in, although I have such experience, but a small. There were contests on the internet where I took the first places, or rather my photos did." "And that's not surprising," Archie replied. "All the men in the business center are crazy about you. I can't imagine what it's like for those who work in the same office with you. I'm used to male attention and I take it calmly. And at work, I work and I don't care who's crazy about me. I can imagine how many men's hearts you've broken." "Aren't you afraid I'll break yours?" With a sleek smile, replied Marian. "I'm afraid, and I'd hate to do that," Archie admitted. "What would you want?" "Well, I think you know the answer to that question." Archie turned his head toward Marian for a moment and smiled meaningfully. "Oh yes, to get me in bed. That's what you're counting on after the restaurant. And if I say right now that we will not go to your place and there will be no sex," just like that. Archie got a little tense. She cut everything off at once, and he can't sleep at night thinking about her. "And you decided that if we go to a restaurant with you, I'll spread my legs right away." Marian grinned. "Why so rude? After all, if you agreed to go with me, it means that you also like me, so why stall? But no is no, although it's not easy for me to get over it. So despite my refusal to continue the banquet in your bed, are we still going to the restaurant, or are you going to drive me back home?" No. Besides, we're almost there, and I really hope you change your mind. I'm not in the habit of sleeping with men for food." "It's not like that. Here we are." Archie parked the car in the parking lot of the restaurant. He got out first and opened the door on the side where Marian was sitting, offering her his hand. Archie didn't particularly like the royal style. He was more of a fan of high-tech style rather than flashy pomp. The excess of gold around was jarring, but for Marian's sake, he was willing to go anywhere as long as she liked it. They sat down at a table, and Archie thought only of how he could get her to go to this house after the restaurant. His imagination was full of pictures of their stormy night, and he was filled with an excitement that he couldn't put out. Opening the menu, Archie hoped that Marian would not order the most expensive dishes. He himself did not want to order anything, but he realized that he had to, otherwise she would understand the reason, especially there were dishes at quite humane prices. So choosing 2 dishes with a total cost of just over $2,000, he hoped that Marian would make a choice in the same price category. "Have you made up your mind?" he asked, not stopping to devour with his eyes her breasts, slightly protruding from the neckline. "Yes," she replied, closing the menu. The waiter came up to them. "I would like black cod, eggplant with foie gras and truffles, Thai rice with shrimp, vanilla mango cream and blackberries. And from the drinks, a martini royale." Archie swallowed nervously, estimating that it was $10,000 if not more. Marian's modesty is not notable, or she did it on purpose. "But I don't care. This girl is worth it," he thought, and voiced his modest choice. "Do you come here often?" he asked as the waiter left to take their order. "I go to different places every weekend. This restaurant is one of my favorites," she replied. "How else do you like to spend your time?" "Very different. What about you?" "I don't have anyone to hang out with, so I don't go out much." "What are your plans for tomorrow?" "I don't know yet. What do you want to propose?" "I want to suggest that we meet again, because otherwise I'll suffer all day without you," he said. "I'll think about it," Marian replied condescendingly. Archie did not like this answer, but he only smiled, continuing to admire her. After all, he still will not rest until this girl will not be his, and he is used to achieve what he wants, so this time he will win, even if you have to spend a lot. But Marian will be in his bed not today, so tomorrow. Although even today is not all lost, he thought. "I can't resist a question," said Archie, not taking his eyes off his beautiful companion for a moment. "What do you want to ask?" she asked, taking a sip of her martini. "Are you single now? You're not seeing anyone?" Archie was worried, but he hoped for the right answer. "If I was, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now," Marian replied. Glad to hear it, but surprised. How is this possible? After all, you must have 1,000,000 fans at least. "Well, and they are enough. I wouldn't date just anyone. Would you date me?" Archie couldn't stand it. Marian smiled broadly. "Isn't it too early to ask? I don't know you yet, and neither do you know me. What I know is enough for me, and I hope it will be enough time to get to know me, because I'm ready to pay attention to you every day. You only need my looks. I know men love with their eyes, but with women it's different. We look at other things." "And what things do you look at?" he asked. "A man should be reliable, that with it, as behind a stone wall, that could solve my problems. Well, also honesty, purposefulness, loyalty, generosity. All this is difficult to find in one person, and I'm not used to change," answered Marian. "And I'm just like that," with a smile on his lips boasted Archie. In words, everyone is like that, especially when they want to get into bed. But in reality, it turns out that it is not. It's impossible not to want someone like you. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's normal. Can I ask why your last relationship ended? So many questions the first time we met. You're so nosy, a little flirtatiously replied Marian. "I have serious plans for you." "Marian, I'm just crazy about you. I will not humor. I want everything at once, but ready to wait and fulfill all your whims." "Well, it still needs to be checked and not so fast everything and immediately. Why are you single? What's wrong with your ex-girlfriend? Or you to her?" "We quarreled a lot, couldn't come to an understanding." "What was it exactly?" "I wasn't ready to marry her and have kids." "Maybe I want to marry and have children," then said Marian. "On you ready even tomorrow?" Archie answered, and the girl laughed a little. How many times she had heard something like that and on the fingers cannot count. "I mean it," said Archie. "I'm sure you are. I've answered your question. What was your ex's mistake?" "There was too much of him, and a man should have his own space. I'm not someone's property or a dog that has to sit at his feet all the time." "Then there's the jealousy. I can't stand that. Relationships without trust are impossible." Celine, the night fairy's name, was punctual. Archie looked at her with an appraising gaze and invited her into the room. The girl was not a bad-looking girl, but she was far from the object of his desire. Since Archie's pants were already boiling, without further ado, he immediately got down to business, pouncing on Selena. The first time was very fast, but it was immediately followed by the second, and after a short break in the third. Of course, he pictured Marian in front of him, and Selena had a similar figure and long blonde hair too. "How hungry you are," Selena said in a panting voice as the third time came to a close. "It's been a while," he replied. "Will you keep me overnight?" Archie looked at his watch. It had been an hour and a half since Selena had arrived at his place. The charge was $9,000 for 3 hours and $15,000 for the night. He decided it was better to save money and go with 3 hours. 3 hours would be enough. Only half of that time had passed. Archie lay on his back and put his hands behind his head and closed his eyes. "Make me feel good," he said, and Selena immediately got to work. Archie groaned slightly and presented Marian again. A languid smile appeared on his lips and his mood soared. At least now he would be able to go out with Marian without sex for a while, without the risk of pouncing on her like a crazed male. As Selena left after 3 hours, Archie thought about the fact that he'd have to pay less on his mortgage this month. He paid it off early, paying 3 installments a month, and with that, he had 2.5 years to pay it off. But it was good for him. He had a full discharge, so he would be able to sleep well at night. He was looking forward to tomorrow, but the only thing that was bothering him was the next expense. Archie turned on the computer again to look up the prices for skydiving, and then he'd have to go to the restroom again. Archie was afraid to tell Marian that he wouldn't last that long, for God forbid she might scare him off, but he had to limit his expenses, and he thought about how to do it carefully without losing Marian. Sunday. Archie picked up Marian and took her to an extreme event for which he had purchased a discount coupon yesterday. The pleasure cost $9,500 in tandem with an instructor, and Archie decided to refrain from jumping. It was too expensive. Noticing Marian, Archie immediately got out of the car and opened the door for her. The girl was no less beautiful in her sports clothes than in her evening gown. "You look divine as always," said Archie. "I try," she replied with a smile. "Aren't you scared? You haven't changed your mind?" "No. I'm mentally and physically ready." "Then let's go." Archie got behind the wheel and started on the road. "After the jump, we can go for a little walk. We're going out of town. There's a forest and a lake," he said. "Good. We can take a short walk. And then?" "Afterward, wherever you want to go. I'm all yours for the day. We can grab a bite to eat and catch a movie." "Whatever you say," Archie said. "Where do you want to go for a bite to eat?" He really hoped that this time not to such an expensive place. Marian shrugged her shoulders. "It's up to you," she replied, and Archie exhaled in relief. He looked at cafes near where they were going and found a good and budget option. That's where he decided to take Marian after their event. Marian got out of the car and looked up at the sky where parachutes were floating with a smile. "Awesome," she pronounced and looked at Archie. "Shall we go?" "Let's go," he said. The instructor came toward them and soon Marian was sitting in the airplane. "You've got a lot to lose," she said to Archie, because he had already voiced that he would not jump. "I don't want to, especially in a tandem. And no one will let a beginner jump on his own," he answered. "Do you need a photo and video?" asked the instructor. "Of course," replied Marian. Archie didn't show any sign that he wasn't thrilled with the idea. "You can pay afterward," said the instructor before entering the airplane. Archie stayed on the ground and watched as the plane took off, and then Marian jumped out of it in tandem with the instructor. The whole event took very little time, and soon the girl was walking towards him, smiling wholeheartedly. "This is just fantastic," she said. "Incredibly cool." She began to fix her disheveled hair. "I'm glad you like it," Archie said. "I'm going to go change." Marian went to the hangar, and Archie was approached by the instructor. "In an hour and a half, we'll be ready photos and video," he said. "How much do I owe you?" asked Archie. 10 photos and video on a disc of $1,500. "Can I use the card?" "By wire." "Okay." Archie transferred the money and went to the hangar to wait for Marian, who came out about 10 minutes later. "The photos and videos will have to wait a little longer. Let's take a walk to the lake." "Come on," she answered. They walked leisurely through a field leading to a forest where there was a small lake. Archie took Marian's hand gently, hoping that she would let him at least walk with her like this. And to his delight, she did not pull her hand out. "I found a cozy little place nearby where we can have lunch after the walk," he said. "That's great. Do they have ice cream? I'm really craving some." "I think so, but if not, we'll find it later. See, I'm ready to fulfill your every desire." He stopped and turned the girl around to face him. "Don't you deserve even a kiss so far?" he asked, looking hopefully into the eyes of the object of his dreams. "We've known each other for a day and a half. I can't do that right away," she answered, pretending to be a little embarrassed. "How much time do you need?" he asked, trying to hide his disappointment. "Just a kiss." He's already spent so much dough on her, and she can't even kiss him. "Don't rush me. Archie, I like you, but we need to get to know each other, not all at once. I'm not used to it, and I don't want to do it." "Then marry me and we'll get to know each other." "You're quick. Come right out." She laughed a little. "Do you have a place to live?" "Yes, I have a 2-bedroom, so I have an apartment, I have a car, I earn a decent income, and I'm ready to start a family." "I'll take that into account." Marian carefully took her hand out of his hand and reached for the sun, closed her eyes and directed her face to its gentle rays. "That's good. Let's talk about something else, because you're talking about one thing at a time," she added. "That's because I can't think about anything but you. I can neither sleep nor eat. I suffer," he answered. "How much?" she asked flirtatiously. "Very much." "Are you serious about marriage?" "Quite. I'm ready to take you to the registry office right now." "No, not now," she said. "Let's go to the lake." They went forward again, and Archie's chest was once more aflame. No girl had the same effect on him as Marian. After admiring the lake for a while, they went back and, taking the photo and the disc with the video, went to the cafe. There Archie left $2,500, having fed Marian with delicious ice cream. But there was still a movie ahead, and together with the parachute and the photo shoot, it was still a lot of money. Every weekend, he would not be able to afford it, so he had to hint to Marian, and it was better to offer some kind of vacation that would not hit his pocket. When they got to the mall, they took tickets to the movie, which cost Archie $1,400, because Marian wanted to watch the movie in 3D and on the sofa. It was a full 40 minutes before the show, so Marian suggested they walk around the mall. "Wow," she exclaimed, looking at the display of small handbags. "I've wanted one of those for a long time," she said. Seeing the price tag of $12,000, Archie swallowed hard. That's definitely too much, or she's just trying to cheat him. Like kissing and sex, so it's early, and such gifts to beg, so nothing normal. "When's your birthday?" he asked. "In 7 months," she answered and went into the department, immediately asking the salesman to shove her bag closer. Archie's forehead broke into a sweat. There was no way he was going to buy her a bag, he thought, but he was still afraid of scaring Marian away and was on the verge of panic. Spinning the handbag in his hands, Marian said that it was perfect and she could not buy it. The girl went to the cash register, and Archie had no idea what to do. Nervously looking at the exit from the department, he followed her. But then Marian took out a bank card and paid for the bag herself. Archie immediately exhaled. He felt incredibly relieved. After paying, Marian handed the bag with her new clothes to Archie. "There was one more place I wanted to visit while I had time," she said, pulling him along with her. It was a lingerie store. Grabbing a few sets, Marian went to the fitting room. "I wish I could take one look," Archie thought, imagining her half naked in one of the sets. His body was tense again, as if yesterday's release had never happened, except he didn't want any more Celine. He only wanted Marian. Soon the girl came out of the fitting room and put 2 sets of lingerie on the register, the cost of which turned out to be a little over $15,000. "That's a lot," she said in a frustrated tone, twirling both sets in her hands and trying to make an incredibly difficult choice in favor of one. "I'll have to go with one." "Oh," she sighed sadly, continuing to twirl the underwear in her hands. Watching Marian almost crying, unable to make a choice, Archie cursed to himself and pulled out his bank card. "We'll take both," he said, putting the card to the terminal and watching $15,250 fly out of his account. Then he looked at his watch. The movie was 15 minutes away, and that was good, or God forbid he'd make another turn. Handing Archie the laundry bag, Marian pecked him on the cheek, rewarding him with a charming smile. "Thank you," she said. "I hope to see you in one of them in the near future." Archie replied, "Now it's time to go see the movie." "Let's go," she answered, taking him under her arm. Archie watched the men squinting at his companion, and he was filled with pride that he was walking under the arm of such a beauty. Proudly raising his head and smiling, he led Marian to the elevator. He carefully wiped off his 3D glasses and gave them to Marian, and when the movie started, he allowed himself to put his arm around her shoulder and she let him do it, which gave Archie hope that everything would work out with the girl of his dreams. "What did you think of the movie?" Archie asked as they walked out of the theater. "I liked it a lot. How about you?" "It was okay. I liked it," he said. "Shall we have coffee?" "Sure." There were a lot of small cafes on the third floor, in one of which they had coffee and cakes, and then Archie drove Marian home. Before the girl left his car, he got bolder and kissed her himself before she could realize it. "I'm crazy about you," he whispered after that brief kiss. "Why haven't you come to my place?" "Archie, don't rush me," she said seriously. Marian responded to this kiss, but pulled Archie away from her as his hands crawled to her breasts. "If I survive, you have no idea what's happening to me right now," he replied, leaning back in his seat. The girl smiled indulgently. "I'll see you tomorrow. Lunch together?" "Sure," he answered and took her hand and touched his lips to it. "I'll be up all night thinking about you." "See you tomorrow," said Marian and kissed him lightly on the lips. "A little bonus," she whispered and left his car. Archie closed his eyes and sighed. This is what he's going to do in this state, he thought. He's screwed. There's no way he'll give up now. Marian will be his, but just how to speed up the process. Harvey approached Archie as soon as he sat down at his workplace. "It's up to you. I'll eat whatever your beautiful hands can cook." Archie stopped the car at the nearest supermarket and taking the cart from the entrance, he and Marian went into the store. "Should we bake some trout and fry some potatoes and a vegetable salad?" asked Marian. "That's fine. Let's do it." Marian started to put the groceries in the cart, except that besides the trout and vegetables, there were shrimps, expensive juice, cheese, olive oil, sausage, scallops, a piece of beef, and many other things. Archie realized that Marian had decided to stock her empty refrigerator. Having laid out at the cash register about $11,000, he regretted 100 times that he had asked to have dinner at her house, because in a cafe it would have cost him much cheaper. Save, he swore to himself, dragging the grocery bags to the car. Once in Marian's apartment, Archie gasped. A posh 3-bedroom with a huge hallway and kitchen, furnished with expensive furniture and tastefully decorated. "And you live alone in a place like this?" He was surprised. "Yes." "Did you inherit it?" "No. Only part of the down payment. The rest was taken in the mortgage, but there is still half a year to pay. I spent almost my entire paycheck on it. My ex used to pay the down payment, but now I'm on my own. I'll pay it off and then I can breathe, because now I'm restricting myself." "How big is the payment?" "I'm paying $70,000 a month to pay it off. I'm paying it off early too. Why do you need a place like this on your own? I won't always be alone. Are you ready to let a man into your territory?" Archie was surprised. "Why not? So, if anything, and kick out easier." Marian laughed. "Let's go cook dinner." Having filled the refrigerator with food, Marian started with the fish and Archie asked her to peel the potatoes. The two of them did it quickly and in a little over an hour dinner was ready. "Delicious," said Archie, savoring a piece of trout. "I'm a good cook," Marian boasted. "You have no flaws. That's why I dream of marrying you," said Archie. "Everyone has flaws," replied Marian. "Tell me about yours," Archie said. "You're so silly, so I'll tell you all my secrets at once," she answered cheerfully. "Just a little bit." I am very demanding to men, although it is rather a virtue who looks at it." "I've already realized that. What else?" "Now you tell me." "A little sloppy, but for your sake I'll make up for it," Archie replied. Finished with dinner, Marian put the dirty dishes in the dishwasher and sat down at the table again. "Will you pick me up tomorrow morning?" she asked. "Or maybe we can drive from here together." Archie got up from his chair and squatted down next to Marian. He took her hands in his and started kissing her. "I love you, don't I?" he whispered. "Archie," she began to say, but he didn't give her a chance to continue, his lips on hers. He was seized with a frenzy of desire. He lifted Marian from the chair and took her in his arms, and without leaving her lips, carried her to the nearest room. The girl resisted, but he continued on, ignoring her until he had her on the bed and Marian had the finesse to kick him in the groin. "What are you doing?" he moaned, bending in half. "What were you doing?" Roughly she asked and got up from the bed. "You're acting like an animal. Go away, Archie." "An animal? It's normal for people to want physical intimacy with the one they love. If you don't like me, why are you torturing me?" "We've only known each other for 3 days." "Torture you? I told you 100 times I can't do it this fast. I'd asked you not to rush me, you promised, but you just pounced on me like a maniac." "I'm sorry, I can't control myself when you're around." The pain subsided and Archie got up from the bed. "I'm sorry, I couldn't help it." "Oh, okay. Come on, you have to go." Archie left the room and followed Marian to the door. Before leaving her apartment, he looked at the girl with eyes full of longing and pain. "Have you forgiven me?" he whispered. "Forgiven?" Marian came up and kissed him lightly on the lips, and then whispered in his ear, "Don't rush it." A shiver ran through his entire body as her lips touched his earlobe. "My body reacts to you in a certain way and I can't control it. I want you," he confessed. "Don't get yourself worked up. Archie, I like you, I told you. But you're in too much of a hurry. It's stressful. It's hard to control myself around you. I'll go then." Lowering his head, he said, and Marian kissed him lightly on the lips again. Archie tried to hug her, but she immediately pulled away from him. "See you tomorrow," she said, smiling meaningfully. "See you tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you in the yard in the morning." "Okay," she replied. Archie sat in the car and wrapped his arms around his head. What a bitch, he thought. A dynamo. All she does is make money and keep him on a short leash, telling him that they got it all ahead of them. He'd be ruined before he got there. He'll have to get up an hour earlier to pick up Marian. After sitting like that for a few minutes, he drove home. When he entered the apartment, he immediately took a cold shower to cool down a little, to call Sveta or anyone else. He did not want to spend money, especially since, thanks to Marian, they were flying away at a breakneck speed. And he didn't want anyone but her. In the morning, having had breakfast, Archie called Marian and told her that he was leaving. A little less than an hour later, he was standing in her driveway. "Hi," she said cheerfully as she approached the car. "Hi," he replied, squeezing out a smile. The girl kissed him on the lips and got into the car. They drove halfway in silence. "Are you angry with me?" she asked. "No, it just hurts," he answered, and she immediately realized what place he was talking about and smiled, not answering anything. "Are we going to lunch together today?" she asked. "Sure," he replied. "Will I see you at the weekend? My friends are calling me for a barbecue. I wanted to offer you to come with me. A friend has a summer house. Will you come with me both days?" "I'll think about it," replied Marian. She did not particularly complain about such trips to strangers. "I have normal friends, all with girlfriends, by the way. I've already told them that I'm coming with my girlfriend." "You did?" she asked. "That's what I said." "That's what he said." "All right then, I'll do it. Let's go." Archie immediately smiled. When they reached the business center, they went inside, holding hands, and Archie again watched the envious glances of the men in the center. Once they reached the right floor, they said their goodbyes until lunch and dispersed to their offices. On Wednesday, Marian said she was going out with a friend in the evening, so Archie didn't need to drive her home. The man was tense at first, wondering if it was with a friend, but when he saw that after work Marian was met by a girl in a Volvo, he immediately relaxed. Before getting into the car, Marian kissed him on the cheek. "See you tomorrow," she said, rewarding Archie with her charming smile. "See you tomorrow," he replied, escorting her with his gaze until her friend's car disappeared around the corner. "Is this your new one?" asked Alexandra, Marian's best friend, when they drove away from the business center. "So, another sucker," she answered and laughed. "This sucker drools on you so normally," she said. "Oh yes, he could use a bib." "How long have you been playing?" "Not long. At first I thought he might be normal, but he's not. He's got one thing on his mind. It's funny to see his face change every time he spends money on me, and he spends it on his own initiative, answered Marian. Poor guy, with a smile, said her friend. Well, would say as it is, there is not so much though. I cannot pull such expenses. And he is silent, gritting his teeth and paying for everything, anticipating how to fuck me, thinking that I am obviously sold. So why are you wasting your time with him? I wonder when he'll run out. I'm not gonna sleep with him. You're having fun. Alexandra replied with a smile. A little. How are you doing? I'm good. The usual? There's interesting news. The girl smiled enigmatically. We're here. Let's sit down at a table and I'll tell you about it. Alexandra parked at a small restaurant, and getting out of the car, the friends entered it, sitting down at a table which they had reserved in advance. Billy is coming for good in a week, said Alexandra, and from Marian's lips immediately fell a smile. I'm not interested, she answered dryly, taking the menu in her hands. That's not all. He's divorced, her friend continued. Wow. It happens. Oh, come on. Can't you see why? I don't want to understand, and I don't care about his life. Don't lie to me. He's already rented an office here and he's hiring. So he left his beautiful life in Florida and came home, and you didn't believe he was getting a divorce. I still don't. Let's not talk about him. I mean, he'll be here soon. Just wait. Marian looked at her friend and smiled haughtily. Why did you bring him up? You only spoiled my mood, she said. You dreamed not so long ago that he divorced, and now it happened, and you are not happy, Alexandra answered. It's been over a year. I've been rethinking a lot of things. Fallen out of love? Marian, but you are just made for each other. But he could not leave his wife then. He would if he really loved me. That's it. Marian wrinkled her nose and waved her hand. Change the record. It's your business, of course. He was asking about you. Alexander, I understand that he's your husband's best friend and all that, but don't make excuses for him. I'm not. And you knew Billy was married when it started. He was gonna get a divorce when he found out Suma was seriously ill. How do you leave a sick person? And now that she's healthy, I guess he decided to do it. Good for him. But the train's gone. You know how many tears I shed for him. I'm not going to cry over any man ever again. Never again. But with all sorts of suckers you waste time, and on the money they put down. Alexandra shook her head disapprovingly. Fools should be taught. And they put themselves down themselves. Don't give Billy my phone number and tell him where I work. I don't want to see him. He'll find you without me, especially if he knows where you live. A waiter approached the girls, interrupting their conversation. Ready to order? He asked. I'll have the crab, lamb salad, lavender raspberry creme fraiche, orange juice, and berry tea, said Marian. I'll have the same, but instead of lamb salad, I'll have sturgeon. Alexandra made her order and turned to her friend again. How do you work at the new place? Why do you need it at all? I wanted to. Normal work, like everyone else, replied Marian, understanding where the friend is going. And the money that Billy sends you, do not you spend? No, I haven't even looked at that bill. When he gets here, he can have it all. I don't want nothing from him. He's a benefactor. Thinks money will throw money, and I, as Penelope, will wait for him to condescend to me. Probably strun her nose, said Marian. And yet you are wrong about him. Well, let's not argue. He will come here. You'll figure out your relationship. X, I forget what his name is. You know, the one you dated for 6 months. Did he back off? He is. You're Othello. There are no normal men, Sasha, no. Well, my arsony is quite normal, so don't generalize, she said about her husband Alexandra and added, Billy too, by the way. Well, consider yourself lucky, and please stop. That's it. Change the subject, Marian said irritably. The waiter brought their order, and the girls began to eat. Marian's thoughts were now completely occupied with Billy, the only man she really loved, but she had broken off the relationship with him a little over a year ago. Billy was a friend of Alexandra's husband and lived in Florida, occasionally visiting on business. That's how he and Marian had met one day on another of his visits. Billy had all the qualities that should have had an ideal man for Marian, except that Billy was married and the role of mistress did not suit the girl. Favorite promised to divorce, but his wife was seriously ill. What exactly Marian did not know, because she did not need these details. In the end, Billy asked to wait, promised that later, when she recovered, that he could not leave her in such a difficult moment, but he loved only Marian. All excuses, she thought then. Old as the world, they broke up, and then tears and pain, disappointment, depression, loss of interest in life. Billy called, came to visit, begged her not to tear things up like that, begged her to give him some time. But Marian was adamant it was now or never, and he never got divorced. And so a friend opened an old wound, making her remember the past and feel again the echoes of the pain she had experienced then. Thursday morning, Archie picked up Marian. That she did not look as she always did. He noticed at once. She looked as if she had cried all night, which was almost true. "Marian, what is it?" he asked anxiously. "Nothing. Everything is fine," she answered and got into the car. "Have you been crying?" "It was my allergies," she lied and smiled. "It'll go away. I already took a pill." "You sure?" "I'm sure." Marian took out her makeup bag from her new purse and started to put on her makeup. She'd been up half the night and had almost overslept for work. There was no time to put on makeup, so she had to go like that, with puffy and slightly red eyes. "How'd it go with your girlfriend?" Archie asked while Marian was putting on her makeup. "Fine. We went to a wonderful restaurant. It's very good. Shall we have dinner there tonight?" she asked. Archie tensed up. "I'd love to, but I can't tonight." He lied. "I have to help my parents, I promised, so I'll drop you home after work and go straight to them." "Some other time then," she answered calmly. When they got to the business center, they went to the offices, agreeing, as in all the last days, to go to lunch together. "So, is our star still dynamiting you?" asked Harvey Archie when he returned from lunch. "At the weekend we go to my friend's dacha near Tver. Everything will be there," smugly answered the man. "Are you sure?" "Sure. Nature, kebab, booze. We'll sleep in the same room. And if she agreed to go like this, she already agrees to have sex. How much longer can we keep dragging this out? It's obvious she likes me, so envy me, Harvey. Not everyone can have a girl like that." Archie had a smug smile on his lips. "Don't get too excited before you've had your chance," Harvey replied. "Don't be jealous," said Archie and stared at the monitor. Friday. Getting into Archie's car, Marian sighed sadly and looked at the man. "Archie, I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to go to your friend's dacha." Sadly, she said, and Archie felt a chill inside him. "What's wrong? Why?" he asked, trying to contain his indignation. "Here." Marian showed her hand, and Archie didn't realize what was wrong. "What?" he asked, looking at the girl's fingers. "The nail is broken. It's not proper to ride with nails like that." "Well, and something else," she answered. "That's not the reason. If it's so important to you, after work we'll stop by the salon and get your nails done." "What else?" "Well, I started something this morning." Archie knew what she was talking about right away. He felt like smoke was coming out of his ears. "This is just a joke," he thought. "That's no reason either," he answered, though it was a reason. Marian had made it clear that there would be no sex again. "Anything else?" "Nothing else. If you are not embarrassed by my these days and we will stop by the salon tonight, I see no reason not to go," she answered. Marian could see Archie freaking out, trying not to show it, but he was not very good at it. She understood perfectly well that at the cottage he hoped to finally get what she had refused him so far. Only this time he will be a bummer, Marian thought and smiled a little. They stopped by the salon after work. Marian had a new manicure, for which Archie had charged $2,500. She was going to pay for it herself, but he beat her to it. And the girl did not object. It was his business. No one forced him to do it after all. The way to the cottage of Archie's friend was not close, so at 6 in the morning, he picked up Marian. On the way they turned to the store, where Archie bought a bottle of martini, a mango, and a huge watermelon. It was uncomfortable to go empty-handed, even though his friend had said he didn't need to bring anything. He wanted to celebrate his promotion at work, so he stocked up himself. "Do you have water in the car?" Marian asked, taking pills out of her purse. "There's a whole bottle in the glove compartment," he answered. "What kind of pill?" When these days my stomach always hurts a lot. Here is a painkiller I want to take," she answered and took out some water. Archie still hoped that no matter what days they had, they would make it through the night, especially since he didn't care whether it was these days or not. It didn't matter at all. All week he had been thinking only about intimacy with Marian, anticipating how this weekend he would finally get to her body. Marian, on the other hand, was always thinking about Billy. The memories were haunting her, and she couldn't imagine how she could face him again and resist if he started to pursue her. No, she wouldn't give up right away. How much she'd suffered for him, how much she'd cried. Let him suffer too. Tell him she's getting married. Thinking of that, Marian looked at Archie. To him, the poor fellow was already exhausted. She even felt sorry for Archie for a moment. Only he's an asshole, and he's certainly no match for her. All she could think about was one thing. What kind of husband is he? He ain't. All he thinks about is what's in his pants and the expense account. There's nothing to compare him to Billy night and day. What's on your mind? Archie asked, interrupting her thoughts. Nothing much, answered Marian, looking out the window. The weather's nice today. Yes, lucky for us. Archie agreed, continuing to think about how to approach her at night. Once at his friend's cottage, Archie noticed the amazement with which all the men there were staring at his companion. After introducing Marian to his friends and her friends to him, he took her into the house to the room they had been given for the night. Marian said she wanted to lie down for a while. She was tired from the road, and her stomach was still a little sore. Can't you take another pill? Asked Archie. Can't take too many. I'll lie down for an hour and I'll be fine, she said. All right then. You get some rest. I'm going to go and help, and I'll be back in an hour. Archie left the room and went down to his friends. Is this really your girlfriend? Asked one of them as Archie approached. Yes. Why are you so surprised? He asked in a slightly arrogant tone. She looks like the cover of a magazine. A model? Where'd you find one of those? That's a lot of questions. What's the difference? Well, Archie, that's a surprise, says the other friend. Not a girl, a dream. You keep your voice down, or your friend will hear about dreams, laughs the third friend. Where are your girls? Archie asked and looked around. They're in the closed kitchen sorting out the food. They'll be here in a minute. Chatting with his friends, Archie lost track of time, and when he looked at his watch, he realized that it had been 2 hours, not an hour. I'm going to go see how Marian is doing, he said and went into the house. Marian was sound asleep with her pillow in her arms when Archie came into the room. There was still plenty of time before the feast, so he decided he shouldn't wake her up now and let her sleep. Closing the door, he went back to his friends. Tired, we left early. Let her sleep, he said. Marian opened her eyes and stretched. She looked at her watch and realized that she had slept for more than 4 hours. When she heard the sound of approaching footsteps, she got out of bed and began to comb her somewhat disheveled hair. You awake? Archie said with a smile as he entered the room. He immediately walked over to the girl and hugged her, imprinting a kiss on her neck. Marian pulled away from the man. Archie, well, I'm combing my hair, she said. Is everything ready there already? Because I'm hungry. I was just following you to call you to the table. Everything's ready, he said. Good, she said with a smile. They left the house and came to the table outside, where 3 of Archie's friends were already gathered with their girlfriends, who looked at Marian with scrutinizing glances. Hello, everyone, she said with a smile, sitting down at the table. Shashlik, fruits, vegetables, everything was delicious, but the company, Marian felt like a white crow. Archie's friends took turns squinting at her, as did their friends, except that they had different looks. Certainly the girls didn't like her company, but Archie, he sat there like a pompous turkey, showing that she was his girlfriend and feeling his superiority over his friends. And their conversations, what kind of shallow people, Marian thought, regretting that she had come here. There was nothing to talk about and no one to talk to. Archie noticed that Marian was bored and suggested a walk, and she agreed. After a few laps around the garden, they came back a couple of hours later and were told that the bat house was about to be heated. I'm not going, she said to Archie. Why not? He asked. We'll go separately, you and the girls. It's those days, she said. Ah, he blurted it out. He'd forgotten all about it. Well, I'll go quickly. Marian sat down on the garden swing and took her phone out of her purse. While everyone was in the bath, She opened an old folder that she had never been able to delete and began to look at the photos from when she and Billy had been together. There's no one like him anymore, she thought, and smiled sadly. Are we going to sleep in the same room? Marian asked surprised when she was about to go to bed and Archie showed up on the doorstep. Well, yes, he answered and began to take off his pants. Well, then you sleep on the couch. She nodded toward the small sofa against the wall. Marian, are you kidding? He asked unhappily. There's not enough room for two, she replied. The bed was indeed small, and two adults would not be comfortable sleeping on it. It's fine. He settled down next to the girl and immediately embraced her and started kissing her. But when he felt resistance on her part, he pulled away, making a disgruntled grimace. You smell like beer, I can't stand that odor. Wrinkling her beautiful nose, said Marian. And you forgot again that I have these days, she added and turned her back to Archie. Remembering all the mad words, he said them to himself. Grabbing a pillow, Archie abruptly got out of bed and went to sleep on the couch. Patience was at an end, and he could hardly resist taking it by force. Why did you come here with me then? He muttered. To spend time in nature, she answered. And I told you that I'm having these days and probably shouldn't go, but you didn't see it as a problem. And now you're freaking out because there's no sex. Archie, you and I are not going to work out with that attitude, she sighed. We'll make it work. I'm sorry I couldn't help myself again and sleep well, he said, startled by her words. I just love you so much. Good night, Archie, Marian said and yawned defiantly. Archie did not have a good night. His whole body ached and his mind was full of thoughts. He began to think that Marian was getting off the hook, and he was thinking hard about what to do to keep her from hitting him. He got up at 6 in the morning and drove to the nearest place that sold flowers. After buying a bouquet for $5,000, he went back and waited for Marian to wake up so he could give her the flowers and beg forgiveness for his behavior yesterday. Archie did not leave the room, waiting for Marian to wake up. As soon as she opened her eyes, he immediately walked over to her and handed her a bouquet of pink roses. Thank you, she replied, accepting the flowers. They're beautiful. I should put them somewhere. She looked around for a vase. I'm sorry I jumped on you again yesterday, Archie said and leaned in to kiss her, but Marian nuzzled her nose into the flowers, inhaling their scent. How they smell, she said with a smile. So you've forgiven me? Archie asked. I will if you don't behave like that again, and I'd like to go home after breakfast. Archie looked at the girl in surprise. I was thinking of going after lunch, he said. Well then, call me a cab. I want to leave early, she answered calmly. Are you in a hurry, or do you hate it here so much? I don't know what to do for another half a day. I want to go home. All right then, we'll go after breakfast then, he said a little disappointed. Is breakfast ready yet? I don't know. Archie shrugged his shoulders. I'll have a look and find the vase in the meantime. Archie left the room and Marian flopped down on the bed again, putting the bouquet beside her. It amused her to see Archie going out of his way to get to her body, even confessing his love. Thinking about it, she grinned. Funny fool, there's no love here, not even close. Time to end this conversation, she thought, and got up from the bed. Didn't your princess like it here? Asked one of Archie's friends when he informed them that they were leaving after breakfast. She's not feeling well and it's a long way to go. She has to go to work tomorrow, answered Archie. You know, I was watching you two last night, and you're not really a couple, no offense, said the other friend. Archie pouted and looked at his friend. Why is that? He asked. Dear girl, answered the other one. That's right. One of the girls joined the conversation. Her sneakers alone cost probably half my salary, and her tracksuit's not cheap either. As long as I can remember, Archie, you've always had simple girls, and this one's a bimbo. And she's too pretty, you'll be jealous all the time. One of your friends added, We're fine. What about breakfast? Archie dismissed it. Ready. Call your beauty. If she eats scrambled eggs and sausage. Archie followed Marian, and soon everyone was sitting at the table, watching to see if Marian would eat such a simple breakfast. Archie, can I make an omelet without sausage? Asked the girl, rewarding everyone with her charming smile. Of course, right away. Archie jumped up from his seat and went to the refrigerator. What else are you having? Just an omelet and tea and cake. Marian looked at the cottage cheese pie, the aroma of which filled the entire small kitchen in the house. After breakfast, Archie and his companion were escorted to the car, and then the whole company began to discuss Marian, and everyone was inclined to the fact that she was not suitable for Archie. "And what do you plan to do the rest of the day?" asked Archie Marian as they drove home. "So on the house need to do something, and just lie around, a movie or something to watch," she answered. "Maybe we'll lie together?" Archie blurted out. "Again?" Marian almost laughed. "Just lie down together and watch a movie, and I'll help you around the house. I want to rest alone for a while. I need some privacy sometimes." "I see." Archie frowned. "I'll pick you up tomorrow then." "Okay, are you going to the cafe tomorrow night?" "What cafe?" Archie was surprised. "Well, it was Veronica's birthday yesterday. She invited me over on Friday. As far as I know, all of you will be there, and she invited me too." Archie shrugged. "Nobody said anything to me. She's probably upset with me, so she didn't invite me." Archie answered and grinned. "Veronica's been in love with me for a long time," he added. "Have you two been seeing each other?" asked Marian. "No." "You what?" "She's not my type at all. A relationship between Veronica and me is never possible." He said that like she was a leper, noted Marian, because Archie said it all in such a tone, as if he Quasimodo matchmaker. "Marian, to be honest with you, you know her, it's understandable, you probably talked to her, but I'm judging purely from a man's point of view. Veronica is completely uninteresting, she doesn't look after herself, and she has a child. It would be very difficult for her to find a man. I guess some people like fat people. She should look for the right man in general." "Well, you're wrong about not keeping track. She's always got her hair, makeup, manicure, and neatly dressed. She's not fat, she's a little overweight, but she's pretty. I don't really understand about the man in question. Do you think you are too good for Veronica?" asked Marian, realizing that that's exactly what this peacock thinks. "I'm interested in only one girl, and all the others I don't care about." Archie answered and smiled at Marian. "I only said that people like Veronica are not my type." "And if I had a child, would you still like me as much?" suddenly asked Marian. "Of course, you're a different matter." Archie was lying, although, as far as Marian was concerned, there was probably nothing to stop him. He hadn't considered such options for himself, but he'd give up a lot for a woman like that. Archie returned home in a bad mood. After some thought, he called Selena and invited her to this place for a couple hours. He just needed a release, and he got it. And next weekend, he would finally get to Marian as well. No more playing cat and mouse. No more of these days would get in the way. And it's time to set the record straight. He'd never spent as much time running after a girl as he had with her, and certainly never spent as much money on any girl as he had on this one. Monday, Archie came to pick up Marian as usual, and together they made their way to work. When they got into the office, the first thing Archie did was walk up to Veronica. "Happy past," he said, sitting down on the edge of her desk. "Thank you," she replied. "I hear everyone's going to the cafe today to celebrate your birthday, and you didn't invite me. Did you?" she asked and looked at Archie. "I thought I told everyone on Friday. Maybe you weren't in your office." "Maybe I was. So can I join you?" Sure. I invited the whole team." "Veronica, did Mariana say anything about me?" "No, we're not close friends." "Right. That's a shame." He sighed heavily and went to his desk, where Harvey came over. "Hey," he said. "Hello, Harvey." Archie knew he was going to start asking him about the weekend. "Tell me about it." "Everything's fine," Archie replied with a smile. "It's finally happening, isn't it?" Harvey wondered. It's done, Archie lied. "Well, congratulations. So you two are really together?" Sure. I didn't believe it till the last minute. I told you she'd be mine," Archie said smugly. "Can you afford it from here?" "If you're smart about everything, you can cut costs. So I'm fine. You'll be at our wedding." "Is it that serious? When are you planning it?" "I don't know yet, but I don't think it's far off." Archie imagined his and Marian's wedding, and the thought came into his head of buying a ring and proposing to her. She'd know he was really serious, and if she says no, why would she? "I'm sure he will." On Saturday, he would invite her to a restaurant, buy flowers and propose, and then take her to his place and keep her up all night, proving how much he loved her. Before going to the cafe, Marian asked Archie to turn to the flower store. Let's buy her 5 roses, Archie suggested. He didn't want to spend money on Veronica, especially since he had already given her 1,000 for a gift. Just today, they were going to collect the money to give it to the birthday girl in the evening. I like this one, said Marian, looking at the bouquet for 3,000. Marian, if all employees give such gifts, you can go bankrupt, he replied. But how she will like it? I'll take it myself. Marian took the bouquet out of the vase and went to the cash register. Archie only sighed, but did not offer to pay for the bouquet himself. And what is the gift in the bag? He asked. In the morning, Marian went out of the house with it and then left it in Archie's car. A set of cosmetics with Dead Sea salts. Expensive, I suppose? Archie asked. I have a friend who drives. She and her husband have stores around the city, but it costs me a lot. In general, cosmetics are elite and worth their money. What do you get? We're splurging. An envelope of money will be handed over, he answered, thinking about the fact that Veronica will not help any elite cosmetics and why she needs it. And also he did not understand why Marian gives such an expensive gift to just an acquaintance. He used to give his ex-girlfriends a birthday gift for a maximum of 5,000, and this together with flowers. That's how Marian squanders money, and then she doesn't have enough for herself. Archie sighed heavily and took 5 of the cheapest roses, because it was inconvenient to go without flowers. The party was in full swing when Marian was invited to a slow dance by Archie's colleague, who was immediately rewarded with a sizzling look. During the whole dance, Archie kept his eyes on the dancing couple, nervously rubbing his napkin in his hands. He remembered that Marian didn't like to be jealous, but he couldn't help it. The other man was touching her with his hands, and it was driving him crazy. As soon as the next slow song played, he immediately dragged Marian to dance until someone else intercepted. After the cafe, we always go home? He asked. Of course, and get up early again tomorrow, she said. I hope to spend the weekend together. Not this weekend. I took Friday off. I want to go away for 3 days. I have a friend who lives there, and on Saturday it's her birthday. Marian replied, and Archie's face changed dramatically. 25 again. Always something. Don't you want to take me with you? He asked wistfully, thinking that the local men wouldn't let her get away with it. I didn't think about it. Marian answered, amazed at Archie's persistence. She was sure that he was going to get away from her, but he wouldn't give up. Would you go with me? Of course I would. I'd love to, he said. They'd be sure to have everything happen there, and none of these days would get in the way. All right then, let's do it. She answered and smiled, still amazed at Archie. That same evening, Archie started looking for tickets. Wanting and needing, that was putting it mildly. He looked up the price of business class tickets and his eyes almost popped out of his forehead. No, it was too much. But how would Marian feel if he bought economy? Should he not fly? No, we have to go. You can't let her go alone. Archie gutted the last of his stash and asked his parents to send him $150,000 in credit. With $115,000, he had tickets for 2 and back. He himself had never flown business class, but he was sure that Marian flew only that way. Having bought the tickets, he immediately called the girl to inform her about it. How much do I owe you? Asked Marian, barely restraining laughter when Archie proudly announced that he had purchased seats in business class. That's insulting, he replied. It's not a big deal. The main thing is that we'll be together, and you'll be comfortable. Archie, I insist. The pleasure is not cheap, she said. You don't have to give me anything back. If I'm in love, there's nothing I wouldn't do for the one I love, and I hope you'll finally warm up to me. Archie decided that he would buy a ring and propose to Marian there. Marian felt sorry for Archie at this point, considering she was about to explain to him that there would be no relationship between them. Even though he was a sucker, she didn't want to leave him pantsless. He wasn't going to slow down, so she didn't want to drag out the conversation about the impossibility of a relationship between them. She would tell him right after she got back. On Thursday, after Archie drove Marian home, he went straight to the jewelry store. He didn't know much about jewelry, but he knew that diamonds cost a lot of money. In the end, he spent almost all his money on the tickets and the ring. But the man decided that this was the last installment, which would certainly justify itself. There was money left for expenses and a bunch of flowers, not much, but enough, Archie thought. Now Marian would never leave him. The flight was not tedious, and at the airport they were waiting for a car, which was sent for them by Marian's friend. "Is your friend an oligarch?" asked Archie as they pulled away from the airport. "Her parents are," she answered. "They have several restaurants and cafes, as well as a huge pastry shop." There were no oligarchs in Archie's entourage, and he suddenly felt uncomfortable imagining what kind of company would gather at this party. "What do your parents do for a living?" he asked. They had never talked to Marian about her family. "My father is also in business, and my mother is a psychologist. We've been fighting for over a year." Marian did not want to tell him in detail about her family and their relationship. The girl's father was a very wealthy man, but it was not easy with him. Tired of his dictatorship, Marian flipped out and left home. She sold her grandmother's apartment, which she inherited, and bought the one in which she now lives. That's when she met Billy, who was also a very poor man and fully provided for her. But Marian then wanted to prove to the whole world that she herself is worth something, especially not for nothing she studied at the university. Being still in a relationship with Billy, she got a job, and now, working in the office next door to Archie, she held the position of head of the department with a salary of $250,000 and was quite able to provide for herself and pay the mortgage. Billy continued to send her money every month to an account that Marian hadn't used for a long time. Billy never counted money, continuing to help her, despite the fact that they broke up. In fact, he was very different from all those drooling Archie types. Billy valued Marian as a person, and he didn't just care about her expenses, and he wasn't obsessed with sex alone. "I see, and my common people," Archie replied, realizing why this girl was used to the beautiful life. "This is quite a house," said Archie, his eyes darting around as they drove into an area surrounded by a high brick fence. There were girls in swimsuits, music playing loudly, and vases of fruit and drinks on the small round tables by the pool. As soon as they got out of the car, a girl with long brown hair came up to them with a smile on her face. She immediately gave Marian a hug. "Hi, darling. It's so good to see you," she said, and then looked at Archie in surprise. "Alice." She introduced herself. "Archie, nice to meet you," Archie mumbled, trying not to stare at the girl's breasts, which were barely covered by her bikini top. Of course, Marian was the best, but her friend was very good too, and there were plenty of beauties here. "You can put your things on the second floor in the corner room, and come on in," said Alice. While they were walking to the house, Marian hugged a few more beauties and men. "Do you know them all?" asked Archie. "Of course I do," answered Marian. "Why are you so tense?" "I didn't expect it to be like this," answered Archie. "So it's like this?" asked Marian, knowing exactly what he meant. "Well, that everything is so cool and there will be so many people," answered Archie. "It's always like that here. Relax and rest," answered Marian. They went into the house, and Archie looked around and realized that he would never earn money for such a thing. Surely Marian's parents have no worse. That girl was used to luxury, and with his salary of 150 grand, he couldn't afford anything less. But on the other hand, she had invited him here, so he had every chance to expect reciprocity, especially since many women liked him, and money was not the only thing that made him happy. They went up to the second floor and entered one of the rooms. Marian immediately took out a swimsuit and went to change in the bathroom, having thoughtfully locked the door. Archie changed his clothes in the room so that when she came out of the bathroom, he was ready. "Are we going to sleep here?" he asked, eyeing Marian. She wore a netted summer tunic over her swimsuit, through which her half-naked body was clearly visible. "I don't know. Alice will tell me later," she answered. "Are we going to have fun?" "Let's go." Archie approached Marian and tried to hug and kiss her, but she immediately went to the door, preventing him from doing so. "They're waiting for us. Come quickly," she said and smiled. Archie followed her, not taking his eyes off her slender body. His body was beginning to react to the girl in a certain way, and he tried to distract himself from thoughts of her. Otherwise, he would be in a very awkward position, considering that he was wearing only swimming trunks. But Archie had brought a towel with him and decided to wrap himself in it to hide his violent reaction to Marian. It was certainly very cool and fun, but the privacy with Marian in such a crowd of people was out of the question. But Archie still relaxed, enjoying the expensive drinks and appetizers, as well as music and entertainment. The people were cheerful and positive, so he had a good time, hoping that at night his dreams would finally come true. But these expectations were not fulfilled either. Despite the fact that the house was large, it was not easy to accommodate such a large number of people. A separate room was out of the question, and he was sent to sleep on the first floor, where he shared a room with two men, and Marian with Alice and two other girls went to sleep on the second floor. "Where did you find such a frame?" asked Marian Alice as they settled in for the night. "At work, in the neighboring office works. Runs after me in the hope of putting me in bed," answered Marian. "He's pushing with all his might, but he's spending in full confidence that he can buy me. It is obvious that not from our circle, but with inflated self-esteem," said Alice. "It's fun to watch him. Don't you feel sorry for him?" "Sometimes I do. He's completely brain dead from wanting to fuck me. He's a small-minded fellow. He's already blabbed at work that we had a thing, but soon he'll be laughed at for his imagination. So send him in. He's not drooling for nothing. I'll talk to him when I get back. He asked to come here with me, and I decided to give him a chance to rest, so to speak, as a compensation for unjustified hopes and expenses. I wonder about men like that. Your eyes are there. You see who is in front of you and climb, or rather rut like tanks, thinking that he, a horse like that, can something to burn out with a girl like you. It's ridiculous. You have to choose for yourself and not try to do things that mere mortals can't do." "Well, he doesn't see himself that way. Macho. Not everyone can give an objective assessment of himself. My friend works in the same office with him. She's in love with him. Very nice woman, a little overweight and with a child, but not scary at all. And a good person. You should hear how he talked about her. He thinks he's way above her. How is he superior? In my opinion, he is not worthy of her," Marian said before going to bed. "Oh, girls, there are plenty of stooges like that," said their mutual acquaintance Anna. "They see a pretty girl and immediately flow from all places. Stop it, Marian, or he'll turn out to be a psycho. He'll do something that'll make you look bad. Like at Mighty's, remember, a couple of years ago, one of these same suckers slit his wrists. The girls all crinkle up. You, God forbid. That's really sick," answered Marian. "I'll talk to him as soon as we get back." "And with Billy never saw again?" suddenly asked Alice, and Marian immediately changed in the face. "No. Alexander said that he divorced and is moving away, but I don't want to see him," she answered. "That's great news. Why don't you make up? You were such a great couple," Alice asked. "We were. He left me then, even though he promised to divorce me. It's over between us." "Oh, Marian, where could you find a better one? And it was you who sent him away. Your last one was jealous. This one was nothing. And Billy is a real man. I'll tell you a secret. A lot of people envied you, even me." Alice sighed dreamily. "Only he's married. I'm surprised that his leech finally got off and gave her a divorce. Probably still grabbed half of everything that does not belong to her. That's for sure. Who wants to leave empty-handed? The important thing is that he's free now. Well, since you don't need him anymore, I guess I'll take him." Alice looked slyly at her friend and laughed when she threw a pillow at her. "I'll do it for you," Marian replied and threw a second pillow at her friend. "That was to prove it," Alice said, throwing the pillows back at Marian. The next day was even more intense than the first. In the first half of the day, the whole company went to the sea, where there were rides on a banana, a water tube, a scooter, a game of beach volleyball. A separate piece of beach was set aside for them, and Archie had no idea how much such a birthday party could cost. They spent about 5 hours there, and then moved back to Alice's house. Toward evening, tables were set up outside, bursting with delicacies. Then live music and foam disco began right by the pool. Archie decided not to deny himself anything, because when else would he be able to be at such an event? "And your Gofford is getting into the taste," laughing said Alice, watching Archie drinking the 2015 San Leonardo with two of Alice's friends. "And it looks like he's found some new bodies that he can't handle either." "I bet he is. He's never been to a party like this before," Marian replied. The next morning after breakfast, it was time to leave this paradise, which Archie did not want to leave. "Did you like it?" asked Marian, noticing how longingly he looked at Alice's house as they drove off. I don't know. It was great. I've never had such a vacation, he said. I only wish I could have been alone with you. Marian smiled and looked out the window without answering. When they returned, Archie took the car from the parking lot, and on the way home Marian fell asleep. She woke up when Archie's car stopped. "Where are we?" she asked, looking out the window and realizing that he hadn't brought her home. "My place," he said and pulled the ring out of his pocket. "Thought about proposing to you, but there was no way. Marry me." Marian clapped her eyes in amazement. "Archie, are you serious?" she asked. "Of course I am," he replied. "Archie, I'm sorry, but no. We're just not right for each other. I wanted to talk to you about the fact that nothing will happen between us and we won't see each other again." Archie went pale. "I don't get it. You gave me hope and now you're telling me we're not going to see each other." "Well, we've been talking, getting to know each other, so I've come to that conclusion. And I don't love you," she said. "Huh." Archie grinned nervously. "That's a good way to throw me." Everything inside him began to boil with anger. "You've been ditching me for so long and now you're in the bushes." "That long? You sound like months. Let's just go our separate ways." "Do you have any idea how much money I blew on you?" he yelled. "Ooh, that's the reason I have to spread my legs for you. Do I look like a hooker to you? You're worse." He put the ring in his pocket and looked at Marian hatefully. "Why did you call me? And this ring costs almost my entire salary, not to mention other expenses." "Well, you asked for it, and I did not ask you for the ring, as well as the rest. Now you've shown me what you are, which I've already seen." "I don't want such a man," she answered rudely. "What kind of man do you want? Who will pour millions into you and not fuck you?" He almost shouted. "Nobody asked you to pour anything into me. By the way, I'll pay you back for the ticket. And for the rest, then give it to me," he roared. Marian laughed. "That's all love is," she said. "You're going to laugh that I'll fuck you right in the car," he said, and Marian immediately pulled the door handle to get out, but the doors were locked. "All you wanted was one thing, all the thoughts in your pants. Just because you tried to buy me doesn't mean I'm for sale. Open the door," she said, giving him a searing look. "First, let's go to my place and do what we should have done a long time ago," he said. "I'm not going anywhere and I don't owe you anything." Archie unlocked the doors and got out of the car first. Marian also hurriedly left the car, and Archie took her by the arm and dragged her to his driveway. "Let go, horny," she said and kicked him in the knee. "Bitch," he wheezed, immediately letting her go and lifting his leg to stroke his knee. "Get my suitcase and I'll call a cab." Archie went back to the car and opened the trunk, threw Marian's suitcase out of it, and then wandered to his driveway, throwing a few insults at the girl. Marian called a cab, and Archie pulled out a bottle of vodka as soon as he entered the apartment. He was close to hysterical and was shaking with anger. After a few shots of vodka, he sat down at his computer and started looking for a prostitute who looked like Marian and was cheaper than Selena. An hour or so later, he was already making out with Cindy. She was far from Marian, but she got $6,000 for 3 hours. The girl had more than earned her money, but Archie felt better only physically, and his soul was incredibly nasty. He still wanted Marian, no matter what. Marian got out of the cab, and Billy came out of the black Range Rover parked outside her driveway, holding a huge basket of flowers. Marian froze in place, looking at the man, and he hurried toward her. "Hi," he said with a smile, handing her the flowers. "I missed you so much." Marian definitely turned away. "Hi, why did you come?" she asked, trying to cope with the excitement that overwhelmed her at this moment. "To finally marry the woman I love," he answered. It was beyond her strength to resist, and Marian tearfully threw herself on his neck, and Billy immediately hugged her tightly, kissing her neck. Monday. Archie came to work in a foul mood. He'd shouted Harvey down as soon as he'd opened his mouth to ask how the weekend had gone. He hadn't seen Marian since morning or lunchtime. She must have taken some more time off, he thought, and picked up his phone. He twirled it around in his hands, wondering what to write to her, but he couldn't find the words. Putting the phone aside, Archie tried to concentrate on his work, but he kept seeing her in her bikini and the mesh tunic she'd been wearing the day they'd arrived. Tuesday. Archie had just parked outside the business center when he saw Marian step out of the black Range Rover that had just pulled up. But what caught his attention more was the man who opened the car door for her and gave her his hand. He looked to be a little over 30 years old and very presentable. It was clear that he was a rich man. Archie could not hide the way Marian looked at this macho man. She had never looked at him like that before. The man hugged her with one hand and lightly kissed her on the lips, and then she went to the entrance to the business center. The girl was glowing and seemed to light up everything around her with her beauty and charming smile. Archie immediately followed her and barely managed to jump into the elevator, where to his joy there was no one but Marian. "Who is it?" Archie asked, giving her a stern look. "Someone who's going to beat your face in if you bother me," she answered dryly. "You found a richer fool? Nothing. He'll find out what a dynamo you are. He'll run away at once," he said mockingly. "Archie, calm down. Be a man and accept my rejection with dignity. I don't have a shred of respect for you." "When will you get the money back?" he asked. "I changed my mind. After all the time I wasted on you, and you turned out to be worse than I thought." The elevator doors opened. "Get out," said Marian to Archie, who was blocking her way out of the elevator. "Are you serious with him?" Archie was mad with jealousy and had no idea what to do, no idea what he was saying. Marian stepped out of the elevator and stopped, looking at Archie pityingly. "More than that, he's a real man. I love him, and we're getting married soon. And of course, I did not dynamite him. Andriush, and you find someone the same level with you. And don't cry. God with you, I'll pay you back for the ticket and underwear." Without waiting for an answer, Marian went to her office, and Archie looked after her for a while. His eyes suddenly twitched nervously and his hands trembled. This is it, he thought. There was nothing more he could do, and this woman would never be with him. His dreams of her remained dreams. 3 months later, Marian married Volodya and quit her job, working there only 2 weeks after she returned. Now she helps her husband with the business, earning 4 times as much as Archie, and she paid him back the money for her ticket and underwear. Archie still gave the ring back to the store, although it took a lot of nerve, because jewelry cannot be returned. He has already found a new job and in a couple of days will leave this business center, because after his unsuccessful affair with Marian, there were some bad rumors about him. Veronica was still fond of Archie, despite the fact that Marian said some unpleasant things about him. However, Veronica did not refuse to socialize with other men, and soon she would meet one of the employees of Billy's firm. Marian has set a goal to find Veronica a fiancé, and their senior manager liked the woman. In fact, she liked him from the photo. Veronica realized that Archie would never look in her direction, but life must be arranged. At the new place of work, Archie immediately paid attention to Elizabeth. Slender, long-legged brown girl, by type reminiscent of Marian, stood out against the background of the other female employees of the office. The girl agreed to have dinner with him in a cafe, which he chose himself. And this time he would be lucky, he thought, anticipating the upcoming stormy night in the arms of the beauty.